Brock Lesnar has spent over 2 decades cashing checks that most wrestlers only dream about. He signed for a few $100,000 as a rookie, then walked away as the highest-paid performer WWE has ever had on its books. This is the story of exactly how much money the Beast incarnate pulled out of professional wrestling. One contract, one payday, one Saudi Arabia check at a time. Brock Lesnar's paydays didn't just make him rich. They rewrote how WWE pays its biggest stars. Let's start where the money started. Brock Lesnar debuted on WWE's main roster in March 2002. He wasn't some indie guy who got lucky. He came in built like a tank, fresh off a run as an NCAA heavyweight champion, and WWE knew exactly what they had. But that didn't mean he walked in getting paid like a superstar right away. Brock Lesnar debuted on the WWE main roster in March 2002 and became the youngest WWE champion in history at age 25 by defeating The Rock at SummerSlam 2002, with his salary starting at approximately $250,000. Think about that for a second. A guy who would go on to be called the single scariest attraction the company ever had was making the kind of money a mid-card guy makes today. But it didn't stay that low for long, because Lesnar didn't stay low on the card for long either. He beat The Rock. He beat The Undertaker. He became WWE champion faster than almost anyone in company history had ever done it. And the paycheck followed the push. By 2003 to 2004, his annual earnings were estimated at $1 million. That's a 4-fold jump in under 2 years. The kind of raise that tells you a company is terrified of losing you. And that's exactly what happened next. Lesnar didn't just get a bigger check and stick around. He looked at the landscape, decided wrestling wasn't the only mountain worth climbing, and walked. Lesnar left WWE in 2004 to pursue an NFL career, walking away from the biggest paycheck in wrestling at the time. He tried out for the Minnesota Vikings with zero football background and nearly made the roster, which on its own is one of the wildest footnotes in his career. Then he pivoted again, this time into mixed martial arts, where he'd end up making millions more before ever setting foot back in a WWE ring. Here's the thing about that first WWE run, though. It set the template for everything that came after. Lesnar learned early that leverage is everything. He learned that if you're valuable enough, you can walk away from a paycheck, and companies will chase you down with a bigger one. That lesson would define the second half of his career and turn him into the richest attraction wrestling has ever had. Because when Lesnar came back to WWE in 2012, he didn't come back on the old terms. He came back on his terms. And that shift, from a guy who signed for $250,000 as a rookie to a guy who would demand and get millions for a handful of appearances a year, is where his real fortune got built. Lesnar returned to WWE in April 2012 on a part-time contract. That fundamentally changed how WWE pays top talent, with his initial return deal reported at $2.5 million per year for limited appearances, a premium per-appearance model that no top guy in company history had really been given before. WWE had never paid someone that much money to show up that little. But Lesnar wasn't like anyone else on the roster, and everyone from Vince McMahon on down knew it. Within a few years of that return, the number had exploded even further. Over the course of that run, Lesnar's base salary reportedly fluctuated between $5 million and $12 million per year, despite working a drastically reduced schedule compared to full-time wrestlers. That's not a typo. A guy wrestling a handful of matches a year was pulling in more than most full-time roster members combined. And it wasn't just a base salary sitting quietly in a bank account. His return fundamentally changed the economics of top-tier wrestling contracts by establishing the modern part-time megastar model. Every star after him, Undertaker's late career run, Goldberg's returns, even some of the deals John Cena eventually got measured against the blueprint Lesnar built, rather than appearing weekly. He was positioned as a special attraction. competing primarily at major pay-per-view events and select television appearances, and in addition to his base salary, he commanded enormous per-appearance fees, with contract leaks from the late 2010s suggesting he earned roughly $167,000 simply for showing up on television, and as much as $650,000 per match. Let that sink in for a second. $650,000 for one match. Not a tour, not a month of house shows. One night, one match, sometimes lasting less than 2 minutes if it was a Goldberg squash. Lesnar had built himself into the highest hourly rate in the history of the wrestling business. And he did it by doing less, not more. That's the foundation, a rookie contract worth $250,000 in 2002 that, within a decade of his return, had exploded into a payday structure worth tens of millions across a career. But the base salary was only one piece of the machine. The real money, the numbers that made jaws drop across the wrestling world, came from somewhere else entirely. Pay-per-view season, WrestleMania, and a kingdom on the other side of the world. That was about to change wrestling paydays forever. By the mid-2010s, wrestling media had gotten obsessed with one question. Exactly how much was Brock Lesnar making? And thanks to leaked reports, court filings, and journalists like Dave Meltzer, we actually got real numbers instead of just guesses. Start with 2016, according to Dave Meltzer. On the latest episode of Wrestling Observer Radio, Brock Lesnar earned $11 million in the last year from WWE. Now remember, this is the same year Lesnar was winding down his UFC run and had been suspended for a failed drug test. He was juggling 2 combat sports empires, and the wrestling side alone was worth $11 million to him. In 2016, Lesnar had less than a dozen matches in WWE, with the biggest of those being his win over Dean Ambrose at WrestleMania 32, his win over Randy Orton at SummerSlam, and his defeat in less than 90 seconds to Goldberg at the Survivor Series. Read that again. Less than 90 seconds against Goldberg, one of the most infamous squash matches in wrestling history, and it was part of a year that still netted him $11 million. That's the part-timer economy in its purest form. You don't get paid by the minute you're on camera. You get paid by how many eyeballs you can pull toward the show. And Lesnar could pull eyeballs like almost nobody else on the roster. Then came 2017, and the numbers somehow got even crazier. Forbes actually broke down what Lesnar was making per match that year, and the figure was staggering. Forbes reports that his earnings were pretty outrageous, as he accumulated over $923,000 a match this year, nearly $1 million average for every single time he stepped in the ring. The full year total was even bigger. Forbes reported that Brock Lesnar took home around $12 million in 2017, having only wrestled 13 matches while working a very limited schedule, where he only showed up around the dates of his matches to promote them, and sometimes he didn't even need to show up before the live crowd, because a video message could just be taped beforehand. Sit with that for a second. There were nights Lesnar made money without even flying to the arena, a pre-taped promo cut somewhere in Canada or wherever he happened to be on his ranch. And that alone was worth a chunk of a paycheck bigger than most performers see in a decade. It's almost insulting to the rest of the roster if you think about it too hard, except it also tells you exactly how much WWE believed his mere presence was worth, to buy rates and ticket sales. And here's where it gets interesting, because he wasn't just the highest earner on the roster that year. He was blowing away the competition. Lesnar is first in money-making by a long shot, as the 2 entry is John Cena, who raked in $8 million from WWE in 2017. John Cena, the face of the company for over a decade, the guy who'd headlined WrestleManias and sold more merchandise than anyone in company history, was still $4 million behind Lesnar that year. And Cena was working way more dates. Different outlets caught this pattern in different years too, which tells you it wasn't a one-off fluke. Statista's breakdown of that same period shows a slightly different split, but the same overall shape. Cena is the champion in WWE's Money League by a long distance, taking home $10 million that year, with Brock Lesnar coming in second with $6.5 million, while Roman Reigns came in third with $4.3 million. Whether you go with the Forbes number or the alternate figure, the story is identical. Lesnar and Cena were operating in a financial stratosphere the rest of the roster simply wasn't in. By 2019, leaked documents gave us an even clearer public snapshot. In 2019, a list containing over 70 names revealed the guaranteed annual salary of WWE superstars, with Brock Lesnar making $12 million and John Cena $8.5 million among those who earned the most money. That $12 million figure would stick around as the benchmark number quoted across wrestling media for years afterward, showing up again and again in salary breakdowns through 2020, 2023, and 2024. Brock Lesnar's net worth in 2020 was reported to be anywhere between $22 million and $28 million, with the former UFC heavyweight champion reportedly earning $12 million per year. Multiple outlets kept confirming the same figure well into the following years, with reports as late as 2023 and 2024 still citing that annual salary of $12 million, and that as per paycheck, Brock Lesnar makes around $12 million per year from WWE, making him the highest paid wrestler on the WWE roster. So for the better part of a decade, roughly 2016 through 2023, Lesnar was operating with a consistent, well-documented annual take somewhere between $11 and $12 million a year, doing a fraction of the dates of anyone else drawing that kind of check. It's the single most efficient payday-to-workload ratio in modern wrestling history. But even that headline salary wasn't the biggest single number in Lesnar's WWE ledger. To find the real jackpot, you have to leave American arenas altogether and follow the money to the Middle East, because that's where Lesnar cashed the biggest individual checks of his entire wrestling life. In 2018, WWE signed a 10-year partnership with Saudi Arabia's General Sports Authority, and it changed the pay structure for the entire top tier of the roster. Nobody benefited more than Brock Lesnar. The deal meant WWE would run massive spectacle shows in the kingdom multiple times a year, and the money on offer to headline those shows was unlike anything the American pay-per-view circuit had ever produced. WWE was expected to make between $20 million and $40 million per event, from 2 Saudi Arabian shows that year under the 10-year deal. Later estimates pushed that number even higher. Estimates suggested WWE may have been making as much as $50 million for each Saudi Arabian special event. One report on the Crown Jewel show specifically broke down where that money went. Saudi Arabia officials were reportedly paying WWE over $60 million for that Crown Jewel PPV, with $40 million going toward putting on the show and $20 million for expenses, which also includes pay for talent. With that kind of cash flowing into the company, it's no surprise that WWE turned around and handed enormous individual paydays to the handful of stars who could actually justify headlining a show funded like a small country's GDP. And Lesnar was at the very top of that list from day one. Ahead of the very first Crown Jewel event in 2018, word started leaking about what Lesnar's Saudi payday would actually look like, and it stunned even seasoned wrestling reporters. Dave Meltzer reported it plainly. Lesnar was believed to be pulling in around a 7-figure payday for his next match in Saudi Arabia. Meltzer put it in perspective by comparing the show's overall revenue to the promotion's biggest annual event, saying these Saudi shows were generating more actual dollars for the company than even its WrestleMania shows. If the shows themselves were out-earning WrestleMania, it makes sense the top-billed star of those shows would be out-earning his usual WrestleMania rate too. Other outlets ran with similar numbers, describing Lesnar's cut for that first Saudi run as being well into the 7 figures. 7 figures for one match in one night on the other side of the planet. That single Crown Jewel payday alone likely dwarfed what most full roster members were making across an entire calendar year. And Lesnar didn't just show up once and cash out. He became the poster boy for these shows, the guy WWE could count on to fly overseas and deliver a spectacle every single time the kingdom called. He was there for the early Crown Jewel shows, the greatest Royal Rumble, and multiple events after that as the 10-year partnership rolled forward. Ever since WWE landed its lucrative deal with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. In 2018, the financial rewards from these grand, star-studded pay-per-view events have been colossal, and Brock Lesnar has been a fixture at nearly every one of them, adding star power and attraction to the shows, even into his 2019 headline appearance, defending his championship against a former UFC heavyweight champion. Making his WWE debut, Lesnar remained the centerpiece attraction of the entire Saudi partnership. Reports on his per-appearance rate for the Saudi shows consistently placed him in the same territory of $1 to $2 million a night, a number that dwarfed his already massive domestic per-match rate. It's worth pausing here to appreciate just how absurd that gap is. Back home, Lesnar was pulling in roughly $650,000 for a marquee match. Fly him to Riyadh or Jeddah, and that number could nearly triple for the exact same kind of appearance. Sometimes for a match lasting only a few minutes longer than his domestic bouts. The geography changed. The workload barely did. The paycheck exploded. Not every Saudi payday held steady at that peak level, though. As the years rolled on and WWE ran more of these shows, some reports suggested the company started trimming costs across the board. The backstage mood among superstars was described as one of weariness, with many of WWE's stars burnt out from the grueling journey abroad, and the shrinking paychecks were sure to make matters worse. Though Corey Graves noted the huge paydays remained a big reason, many superstars still made the trip. Even with some belt-tightening industry-wide, Lesnar's specific rate stayed near the top of the pack because he remained one of the very few names WWE trusted to justify a marquee international slot. So by the time you stack it all up, the base salary north of $10 million most years, plus per-appearance bonuses in the mid-six figures, plus Saudi Arabia paydays, reaching into seven figures for a single night. You start to understand how a guy wrestling a dozen matches a year could out-earn nearly everyone else on a full-time roster of hundreds of performers. But salary and appearance fees are only 2/3 of the picture. The final piece of Lesnar's financial empire came from somewhere most fans never think about when they picture a wrestler's paycheck. A completely different combat sport running on a completely different payment structure that happened at the exact same time as his WWE peak. Here's what makes Lesnar's story different from basically every other wrestler who's ever cashed a big WWE check. He wasn't just getting rich in one sport. He was doing it in two at the same time and using each one as leverage against the other. When Lesnar first left WWE in 2004, most people assumed his wrestling money-making days were behind him. Instead, he found an even more lucrative outlet in mixed martial arts, and by the time he made his UFC run, he was already the promotion's single biggest attraction thanks to the crossover fame he'd built in the ring. Brock Lesnar's UFC career was enormously profitable, despite lasting only 4 years, and his crossover appeal from WWE made him the biggest pay-per-view draw in UFC history at the time. The disclosed numbers on their own were already big for that era of the sport. Total disclosed UFC purses came out to approximately $5.15 million. But disclosed purses were never the whole story with Lesnar, because UFC's real money came through pay-per-view revenue sharing, bonuses tied to how many people actually bought the fight, and Lesnar sold pay-per-views like nobody the promotion had ever had before. Take his biggest fight. When his court records and contract disclosures eventually got dug into by researchers, when his share of pay-per-view revenue was factored in, his total earnings for that bout were estimated to fall between $5.5 million and $8 million. one single fight worth more than most WWE superstars make across several years combined. And that wasn't an isolated jackpot. Several of his earlier fights also generated enormous payouts at UFC 141 in 2011 against Alistair Overeem. Court records later revealed Lesnar earned approximately $3 million. His fight against Frank Mir at UFC 100 in 2009, one of the highest-selling events in UFC history, brought in an estimated $3 million or more. His late career return to the octagon in 2016 kept the trend going. He then earned $8 million fighting Mark Hunt in 2016. One outlet broke down that specific fight's economics in more granular detail. His most lucrative UFC fight was against Mark Hunt at UFC 200 in 2016, where his disclosed purse of $2.5 million increased to approximately $10.25 million when including bonuses and PPV revenue shares. That fight happened during a period when he was also drawing his full WWE salary, meaning in a single calendar year, Lesnar was collecting a WWE paycheck worth $11 million and a UFC purse worth $8 to $10 million more from a fight against Mark Hunt. When you add up the full run, the totals get staggering fast. Brock Lesnar earned approximately $24 to $25 million total from his UFC career, across 8 professional fights spanning 2008 to 2018, comprising $5.25 million in disclosed base pay and an estimated $19 million from pay-per-view revenue sharing. What's remarkable is how Lesnar used the two promotions against each other rather than picking one and sticking with it. Wrestling insiders noted this explicitly. During his contract negotiations ahead of that first Saudi Arabia run, Lesnar was looking at short-term contracts and thought that the more free he was, the more money he could make by playing UFC and WWE against each other to get the best deal. It's a genuinely rare position for a performer in either sport to be in. Most fighters need UFC. Most wrestlers need WWE. Lesnar needed neither, which meant both companies had to pay him like they were terrified of losing him to the other one. And by his own admission, this was never really about legacy or titles for him. In a moment that's been quoted constantly across wrestling media over the years, Lesnar was blunt about what actually motivated him during a 2016 interview. He put it plainly, saying, "He couldn't even tell you where my UFC titles are, or my WWE championships, or my NCAA plaque, my heavyweight plaque. I don't even know where that is right now. But I do know one thing: how much money's in my bank account." That single quote basically explains every business decision Lesnar has made across 2 decades. He didn't wrestle for the crowd reactions. He didn't fight for championship belts sitting in a closet somewhere. He treated his entire combat sports career like a portfolio. WWE base salary in one column, UFC purses in another, Saudi Arabia bonuses in a third, and he optimized for the total at the bottom of the page. Which brings us to the number everybody actually wants to know after 2 decades of WWE contracts. A full UFC career, running in parallel Saudi Arabia jackpots and endorsement deals stacked on top. Of all of it, what does the final tally actually look like? So here's where we land. After a rookie deal worth $250,000, a decade plus of 8-figure WWE salaries, 7-figure Saudi Arabia nights, and a UFC career worth over $20 million on its own, what does Brock Lesnar's full career earnings picture actually look like? The wrestling side alone, stacked across nearly a quarter century, comes out to a massive figure. Over his nearly 25-year WWE career, he has accumulated approximately $150 million in total earnings from professional wrestling alone. That figure gets repeated across multiple outlets, covering his career, and it lines up with the math. Over a decade of years, where he was regularly pulling 8 figures, plus Saudi Arabia bonuses stacked on top, the wrestling side of the ledger genuinely does approach 9 figures. Layer his UFC money on top of that wrestling total, and you're looking at combined career earnings across wrestling and MMA that easily clear the $150 to $175 million range once you add his roughly $25 million from the Octagon. Add his brief NFL tryout stipend, years of endorsement income from brands like Dimetize Nutrition and Jimmy John's, and his Death Clutch fitness label, and the full portfolio becomes even bigger. Some estimates put his total career earnings across WWE, UFC, NFL, and endorsements at $50 to $60 million when counted more conservatively, while other trackers place his combined wrestling and fighting earnings well above $150 million, when every disclosed purse, contract leak, and revenue share estimate is stacked together. The gap between those two estimates tells you something important about Lesnar's finances. Nobody outside his inner circle and his accountants knows the exact number, because WWE has never published performer salaries, and UFC only discloses base purses, not the full revenue share bonuses that made Lesnar's real fights so lucrative. What we do know, hard and documented, are the individual data points. The $250,000 rookie deal, the $11 and $12 million WWE years running. From 2016 through the early 2020s, the seven-figure Saudi Arabia nights, and UFC purses that occasionally hit $8 to $10 million for a single fight. Once bonuses were included, even his net worth trackers, which tend to be far more conservative than the eye-popping total career earnings estimates, place him comfortably in the tens of millions. Multiple reports placed Brock Lesnar's net worth at a whopping $25 million USD. As of the early 2020s, a figure that stayed roughly consistent for several years afterward as he continued drawing a full salary, even during stretches when he wasn't actively wrestling. In fact, according to wrestling reporter Dave Meltzer, Lesnar was never suspended by the company and was fully paid during his 2 years away from WWE, making him one of the highest-paid wrestlers in the company to sit at home and do nothing. Getting paid a full-star salary to not even show up on TV is maybe the single clearest illustration of the leverage Lesnar built for himself across 2 decades of savvy negotiating. He kept adding to that fortune well into his final stretch with the company, too. His return appearances continued drawing top dollar even as WWE trimmed budgets elsewhere on the roster, with his most recent deals still reportedly worth $5 to $8 million annually, reduced from his peak, but still placing him among the 3 highest-paid WWE wrestlers on the roster. Even coming down off his career peak, Lesnar was still out earning almost everyone else in the building. What made all of it possible wasn't just talent. Plenty of talented performers have wrestled their whole careers and never sniffed these kinds of numbers. It was the model Lesnar built after his 2012 return. Appear rarely, sell it as an event every single time, and let scarcity drive the price up instead of the other way around. Every negotiation after that first part-time deal was built on the same leverage, the idea that WWE, and later the Saudi General Sports Authority, and even UFC needed him on their card more than he needed to be there. That's the story of the money. A kid from Minnesota who wrestled in college walked into WWE for $250,000, walked away to chase an NFL dream, built a second fortune beating people up in a cage, and then came back to wrestling and got paid more for showing up a dozen times a year than most performers make working every single week of the calendar. Whether the true career number lands closer to $50 million or closer to $150 million, one thing about Brock Lesnar's financial story has never been in question. For over 2 decades, he was one of the best-paid human beings to ever step through the ropes. And he built the entire business plan for how a part-time wrestler could out-earn a full-time roster, one massive check at a time.